Okay, let's get started. We have our Chapter 5 study guide. First pair of questions are, complete each congruent statement by naming the corresponding angle or side. Okay, we have triangle GHI. So GHI. So GHI. And then, remember, you can also say that the different side, the one that's across from it is 1 tick mark, right? The one that's across from this one is 2. And the one that's across from the 3 is going to be 1, 2, 3 tick marks. So that's what we're going to do. 1, 2, 3. And then let's do the second one. We have XIW. XIW. So again, straight across from the one angle is 1, 2, 3. If you're wondering how I got that, again, just look straight across. And that's going to give you the number of tick marks. Now the question that's being asked is, what is angle HIG? HIG, right? Which one is that congruent to? Well, look at the number of tick marks. We have 3 tick marks here. So you really want to find one that has 3 tick marks in the other one, which is just going to be this angle right here, angle W. And so let's write that in. This is the angle that we want to find. Now, several ways that you could write this, to be honest. You have 3 tick marks, 3 tick marks. Well, the simplest way, you could write it as angle W, right? Angle W. Now, 2 other ways that you could write it. You could read it from left to right, so IWX. So that's going to be IWX. Or you could even read it from right to left. So that's going to be XWI. So angle W, angle IWX, angle XWI. And honestly, any one of those 3 will work. That's going to be the angle that's congruent to that. Okay. So let's do the next one. You have angle ABC. That's going to be 1, 2, 3. And again, the side across from this is 1, the side across from this is 2, the side across from this is 1, 2, 3. And then the next one is BAX. And so this is BAX. So this is 1 tick mark. Oops, forgot to write 2 here. This is 2 tick marks. And then this one just shares the 3. So you don't really have to do anything there. Now, this time it's asking you for a side length. You can tell because it has this little side length on the top. What is BC congruent to? So B to C is going to be this guy right here. Well, look on the other triangle and see where it has the exact number of tick marks that it has. It's right here. So this is the side that you're going to be concerned with. So I'm going to highlight that part. Now, how do you write that as a side length? Well, that's just going to be XA. Or if the answer choice says AX, either one will work. So make sure you're on the lookout for either of those answer choices on your test. So this one's from section 5.4. Just find the value of X. A couple things here. This one's pretty easy because if 3 sides are congruent, then that means 3 angles must also be congruent. So this must be 60. This must also be 60. So that's one way to kind of look at it. So automatically you know that X is just 60 degrees. If you want to do the arrow notation, I know not everyone's a fan, but yeah. Basically, this shows that every angle that's congruent to every side is also going to be the same. So X is equal to 60. Let's look at this one. Again, if you have 2 sides that are congruent, okay, if you have 2 sides that are congruent, then that means the 2 sides to the 2 angles that you are pointing to must actually also be the same. So this should also be X. Okay. So I'm going to write X here. Just remember this is what it's supposed to look like. Now you have 3 different angles. We haven't actually solved for X yet, but there's a way that we can do that. We know that the sum of the angles of a triangle must always add up to a magic number. You guessed it, 180. 180. And so this is going to be true for any triangle. Let's add up 2x and then set it equal to 180. Subtract 70, subtract 70. And so this is just going to cancel out. You're going to get 2x equals 110. Divide that by 2. Cancel out. And in this case, x is just going to be equal to 55 degrees. And remember, if you want to check that this is the right answer, just plug it back in. If this is 55 and this is 55, do these three numbers add up to 180? Well, I'm going to tell you that they actually do. Just go ahead and plug it into a calculator. Let's look at the next one. Again, I like to think of this as a maze. If you have a starting point, you want to end up at the finish line. Okay, so you're going to kind of snake your way towards the finish line, and that's just a fun way that I like to think of it. Puzzles, yay! So these point. If the sides are congruent, then the two corresponding angles must also be congruent. So you know that these two are going to be the exact same according to these side lengths, right? So now that you have that for 60, well, how do you get this top angle? Well, you know that the measure of these three angles need to add up to 180. And so if you get 60 plus 60, that's going to give you 120, right? And so to find the missing angle, that's just like saying 180 minus 120, which, ta-da, you actually get 60 degrees. So this is actually just 60 as well, okay? Again, if you didn't catch that, again, just add up the two angles, whatever that equals, subtract it from 180. In fact, let me show that work instead of just saying it. Yeah, just take 180 and then subtract 120, right? These two are 120, and you'll be able to get this top angle, right? These three add up to 180. Now, the thing is, if you have this angle is 60, then that tells us exactly what the angle above is because vertical angles are congruent. So 60 degrees, 60 degrees. So let me write 60 degrees here. And a couple things that you could do here. If this is 60 degrees, right? Well, then according to these congruent sides, you know that this bottom one, this top one must also be 60 degrees. Now, you could do the long way and do 180 minus 120 equals 60, but you could also see that 60, 60, 60, well, that's just an equilateral triangle. That means this must also be a 60 as well. So a couple ways to kind of go about it. I'll just write the full steps here. 180 minus 120, that's again 60 degrees. Right, so this should be 60 as well. Whoa, how did I do that? I have no idea how I did that. Cool. Okay, let's do the next one. Pretty similar, I think. These two are most certainly going to be 63. Remember, the key to finding this is 180 minus whatever these two angles add up to. I believe that is going to be 126 degrees. Okay, so subtract 126. Once you subtract 126, you're going to get, what is that? I'm blanking here. 54. Oh my gosh, what happened? So 54 degrees. And again, if this is 54, then this is also 54. And let's point to the sides. If this is 54, then you know that this must also be 54. They're congruent. So let's just write x is equal to 54 degrees. Okay. Okay, moving on. Let's solve for x. First example, pretty simple. Remember, magic number. These always add up to 180. Okay. So you have, I'm just going to write the variable first. X plus 60 plus 50 plus 80 is equal to, and again, magic number, 180. Well, if you add up all of these, right, I believe you get 190. Now, to get x by itself, just do simple algebra. Subtract 190, subtract 190. You're going to end up with x equals negative 10. And that will be your answer. If you were to plug it back in, think about it, that would be -10. And then if you plug in -10, that would just be 50. Well, 50 plus 50 is 100, plus 80, that's 180. So, ding, ding, ding. You can have a negative answer, is what I'm saying. Number 8. Again, these need to add up to 180. So, take all of them, no matter how complicated they look. Just add it up to 180. I know I'm used to writing this in bold. Let's just do that. There you go. And so this, you have 11x minus 2 plus 45 plus 82. That's going to give you 125 equals 180. Subtracting 125 from both sides, you're going to end up with 11x equals 55. Divide that by 11. X is going to equal 5. Okay. And again, plug it in. That's going to give you 55. 55 minus 2 is 53. 53 plus 82, that's like 135. 135 plus 45 is going to give you 180. Trust me. Cool. Second page. Okay, a little bit different. Notice that this guy is not on the inside of the angle, okay? So it's not like it says this, right? If this was the case, then you add the 3 of them to 180. But this one is, remember, interior plus interior equals exterior. I'm just going to write out for exterior. Okay, remember that? You have 2 inside angles, well, they add up to the outside angle. And so really, it's just a matter of adding these two and setting it equal to the outside, which is going to give us, again, I'm just going to swap the orders. I just like having the variable in the front. So I'm just adding these two up, okay, and then setting it equal to the outside. And then from here, it's just a matter of doing some simple algebra, okay? And then the simple algebra, what did I just say? The simple algebra gives us 120 equals 111. Subtract 120 on both sides. This is going to cancel. You're going to get x equals -9. And again, you may have a negative answer for your answer. Once you plug it in, your angle should be positive. And let's do this last one. Inside plus inside. Let me highlight that a little neater. If you add those two up, they should equal the outside. So 7x plus 9 plus 44 is going to equal 109. And we know that that is going to give us 53 is equal to 109. Subtract 53, subtract 53. This is going to cancel. 7x is going to be equal to 56. Divide by 7, divide by 7. X is going to be equal to 8. And so that's the answer. If you're wondering how you would check this, again, well, this one's a little bit more tedious, but you plug it back in. If you plug it back in, you would get 56 plus 9. 56 plus 9 gives you 65, I want to say. And then once you add these two up and then add the third angle up, which you can find by subtracting from 180, yeah, that's going to be like 71, right? It's because 71 plus 109 becomes 180. Well, once you add these three up, you should get 180, okay? Let me actually check that. That's going to be 65 plus 44 plus 71. Oh, man, I can't mental math. I'm just going to trust that that equals 180. Okay, that's 10, 17, 18. It does. Yes, I'm a genius. Okay, spent too long on that. All right, determine if the two triangles are congruent. If they are, state how you know. Okay, these are fun for me. I don't know if it's the order that throws people off, but let's just start with labeling them. So this is an angle, right? Let me actually rewrite it a little bit darker. This is an angle, this is an angle, and this is a side. Again, this is an angle, this is an angle, and this is a side. And these sides that correspond to one another demonstrate congruency. Well, let's see how they work out. Angle, angle, side, angle, angle, side. Because we can read it in that order, right? Angle to side, angle to side. It's just going to be AAS. Okay, not particularly crazy. If you ever read it the other direction, that's fine too. Just know that you're going to end up with SAA, but there's no such thing as SAA. That's just going to be AAS. So yeah. If you have number 12, this one is interesting. You have two 90-degree angles. Now, most of the time, I'm not saying all, but most of the time, if you have a 90-degree angle, try to see what it points to, okay? It points to the center right here. This is hypotenuse. This is H. And the other two are going to be the legs. Okay? And so this is going to be a simple case of whenever there's a right triangle, the side that's across from the 90-degree angle is just the hypotenuse. So everything else is just L. Technically, this is L too, but you don't really need more than that. It's going to be HL. Okay. Here's number 13. Okay. You have a side. But you don't have any other information. Same for the other triangle. You have a side and you have a side, but you really don't have anything. Oh my gosh, this bothered me. You have nowhere else to go if you only have side. Well, what's the cure? Well, notice that there's a shared side between these triangles, meaning this left triangle and this right triangle, they both share a congruent side, which we can mark with 3 lines just because 1 and 2 are taken. This just indicates that from the left and the right side of the triangle, this line is congruent to itself. So really, it's like saying side. That's going to be B right here. Okay. Now, let's look at 14. We have an angle. We have an angle. We have a side. We have a side. We have an angle. Well, we're missing a bit of detail. Well, it turns out, if you zoom in here, this little X shape, remember? If you have a little X shape, you know that the two angles that are across from each other are vertical angles, which mean they're congruent. So we're just going to mark that as congruent. We're just going to call that A. Maybe I should have written this a little smaller, but yeah, this is also A. So reading this in order, you have angle, side, angle. I know this is a little bit hard to read, but it's like saying angle, side, angle, ASA. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. So again, this is just angle, side, angle. Okay, you know based off this little thing. Okay, just read it in order. Notice that I can't skip around kind of like in that weird way. It would not be AAS. You have to kind of follow the shortest path. This is kind of the shortest path, right? So in case you're like reading AAS, don't do that. Unless you're a moron. I'm just kidding. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Okay. Getting down to the wire here. So we have a side. We have an angle. For the other triangle, we have an angle. We have a side. I've already mentioned this, so I'm just going to briefly mention. This is a shared side. So yeah, they're congruent to itself. Okay. So it's like saying this is S and this is also S. Read it kind of in order. This is SAS. This is SAS. I'm not sure if this will help you visualize it, but yeah, you're kind of reading like that. You can't just jump across randomly. So SAS, SAS. Your answer is SAS. That's how you know they're congruent. B. Last one. Let's take a look. What's wrong with this guy? Well, this one's an angle. This one's an angle. This one's a side. This one's a side. This was an angle. Is it not enough information? Quite possibly. Let's first fill in what we can, though. Well, we can fill this in because it's a shared side. We can just call that a side. We can call it a side. Okay, bear with me. If you guys are reading this in the line that it's intended, you go from angle to side, right? You go from angle to side. But what's the problem? That spells a big fat, I'm not even going to write it, okay? That's not one of the theorems that we have. Certainly not this one, certainly not this one, and certainly not HL. It's not a 90-degree triangle, okay? We do not have enough information. Unfortunately, SSA, or the other spelling version of it, anyways, those two are not going to be sufficient theorems to prove congruency. Okay, we're at a loss. So, yeah, that's about it, I believe. There are some trickier ones out there, but if you have questions about those, please let me know. And yeah, happy testing.